woman gives birth to octuplets, and overpopulation. The woman who gave birth to octuplets this week conceived all 14 of her children through in vitro fertilization, is not married, and has been obsessed with having children since she was a teenager, her mother has said. She told the Associated Press she was not supportive when her daughter decided to have more embryos implanted last year. "It can't go on any longer," she said in a phone interview. She's got 6 children and no husband. "I firmly believe in marriage, but she didn't want to get married." The woman, 33, gave birth Monday of last week to 8 babies at one time. She was expected to remain in the hospital for at least a few more days, and her newborns for at least a month. While her daughter is recovering, the grandma is taking care of the other 6 children, ages 2 through 7, and the home is only 1,500 square foot. She said she has warned her daughter that when she gets home from the hospital, "I'm going to be gone." Little psychological research has been conducted on the reasons some mothers seem hooked on repeated pregnancies. Some mothers can be drawn to repeat pregnancies for a number of reasons, theoretically, with some finding the experience so satisfying they choose to become surrogates. And this, in turn, is connected to overpopulation, which is stressing the resources of the planet Earth, making the Earth sick in some kind of way. In 1950, the less developed, poorer regions of the world had roughly twice the population of the more developed, richer ones. By 2050, the ratio will exceed 6 to 1. Human numbers currently increase by 75 million to 80 million people annually, the equivalent of adding another United States to the world approximately every 4 years. And that's way too many. It is stressing the planet. At present, the average woman bears nearly twice as many children, 2.8 in poor countries, as in rich countries, 1.6 children per woman. If recent trends continue as projected to 2050, virtually all the world's population growth will be in urban areas. Everyone born in 1965 or earlier and still alive has seen human numbers more than double from 3.3 billion in 1965 to 6.8 billion in 2009. The peak population growth rate ever reached, approximately 2.1% a year, occurred between 1965 and 1970. Human population never grew at such speed before the 20th century, and is likely not to grow with such speed again, or anytime soon. And are there too many people on the planet Earth? That question is rarely raised today, in part because it conjures up the possibility of governments intruding into the most private and profound decision people can make. In a worst-case scenario, authorities could impose discriminatory policies that would limit births based on such criteria as ethnic origin or race, cultural background, religion, or gender, among other things. But with huge, vexing questions, such as food security, energy supplies, poverty, environmental destruction, and climate change and global warming, among many other problems facing humanity. Some are asking whether aggressive measures to control population growth should be on the public agenda. Too many people wanting too many things. Politicians generally stay clear of suggesting population control policies, recognizing deep-seated concerns they raise. President Barack Obama's administration has promised to take a fresh look at solutions to energy and environmental challenges, and has brought in a new slate of scientific advisors, but the United States remains the only developed country without an official population policy. Might the new administration even dare to raise the idea? You've got to get a president who's got the guts to say, patriotic Americans stop at 2 children, says a professor of population studies at Stanford University. But if you care about your children and their children, we should have a smaller population in the future, not larger, the professor said. Earth's population is approximately 6.8 billion people today, or 4 times the population of just a century ago, even though birth rates are lower. And during the 1960s and 70s, the world is still adding 75 million to 80 million people per year, and is expected to peak at more than 9 billion or more by mid-century. Far too many, say some population experts. The Earth simply cannot sustain that many people, especially if people want to live like people live in the United States. The United States consumes at least a quarter of all the resources of the world. Whether this growth can be sustained, and yes, this is about sustainability, and still provide a decent living standard for people itself, is in question or controversial. Even today's population, some argue, is much too large to maintain without ravaging the environment and creating an unlivable planet. How much would today's population have to shrink to become sustainable? Nobody knows for sure. Some scientists calculate that if suddenly every family on Earth limited itself to 1 child, supposedly by 2150 the world's population would be 1.6 billion. Exactly what it was at the beginning of the 20th century. Scientists are not arguing that that's a perfect number of humans, but it would create a lot more space for other organisms to live. A much healthier ecosystem for us all. And lifestyles are even big issues. Lifestyles in developed countries in North America and Europe consume a huge amount of resources. Everyone living in an industrialized nation puts a much heavier burden on the environment than does someone living in, say, Asia or Africa. And, yes, it's about stressing the planet, the resources. Again, too many people wanting too many things. And this is connected to everything else that's going on in the world. The economic crisis, climate change, energy crises. And, again, all these were end times, transition times, signs. Everything is connected.